and the older adults in the community, and develop programs that connect us and help us build new and deeper friendships as we get older, and offer needed services within the scope of our volunteers. So we are especially thankful to TriPly, who is a new sponsor of ours starting this fall. So today, Celisa is going to talk about Cowiche Conservancy, Love This Land, which is something that I think resonates with all of us and I know is really important to her. And she's going to give us an overview of the organization and their work and talk about recent projects and the impact of COVID-19 and how they're adapting. In just a minute, Susie's going to introduce her, but I just want to remind people that if you get bumped off, be sure to have your meeting ID and passcode somewhere you can find it. And Celisa's given us permission to record this. So Chrissy, you want to talk about that?
We're going to go ahead and record the session this afternoon. So if you don't want your image to show, you can go to the stop video and click off your image there. Also mute is helpful. That way there isn't any background noise during Celisa's presentation. I will send out an email afterwards with a feedback survey, a link to the feedback survey form on our website, and then also a link to our past videos on our website of our presentations. Thank you for being here, Celisa. Yeah. Susie,
You're up, Susie.
Okay. Well, Celisa sent me her bio and I thought it was so great. I'm just going to read it. Yeah. Okay. So Celisa Hopkins serves as executive director of Cowiche Conservancy. She's spent her career working in nonprofits focused on community health and well-being. Celisa grew up in Yakima, graduated from Eisenhower, and spent the following year as a Rotary Exchange student in Brazil. I want to know more about that. Celisa describes this as a year of great adventure and fostered a love of travel, openness to different cultures and ways of life, and inspired her to take risks and have experiences out of her comfort zone. She then attended University of Washington, graduating with a degree in political science and geography. After spending a few years working in Seattle, Celisa returned to Yakima to be close to family and eventually start her own. She's a mother of 3 very active school-age kids. She still seeks out adventure. When she isn't working or busy with her kids and their activities, she enjoys spending time with her partner, Doug, doing anything outside, walks, puttering in her yard, hiking on the trails of the Conservancy, or paddleboarding. So I don't know where she goes to do that. Or if she's stuck inside, reading, cooking, eating, and teaching and practicing yoga. Wow. Yay. A lot of stuff.
Welcome, Celisa.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share about Cowiche Conservancy. I know some of you are very familiar with the Conservancy and some of you less so. So I will, as Mary Lou said, do a little bit of all of it. I don't think I can share my screen. So if you want to do allow me to share my screen, I
there you
will.
Go.
Yeah, give you some something better to look at than just my face the whole time. So Cowiche Conservancy is a nonprofit 501c3. The organization was created in 1985. I can't page down. There we go. To convert the old rail line that ran through Cowiche Canyon to a trail system. And here we are 35 years later. It doesn't look all that much different other than there's no longer the railroad that runs through it. And in '87, the organization actually purchased that right away for $1,000, which is about 100 acres. And it was 2.9 miles of railway, which I don't think you'd get it for $1,000 today. As an organization, we've come a long way from that original 100 acres. We are currently own and manage over 6,000 acres. We have 6 trailheads, 4 at Cowiche Canyon, 1 at Rocky Top, and 1 at Snow Mountain Ranch. And then we have another property on the North Fork of the Cowiche Creek that we partner with Department of Fish and Wildlife to manage. So a lot of property. As the properties expanded, the mission of the organization also expanded. Today our mission is to protect shrub steppe habitat and connect people to this vanishing landscape. You might ask, what is shrub steppe? Or you may know. Some of you could probably tell me something about shrub steppe, but shrub steppe is just what it sounds like, shrub being shrubs and steppe being grassland. And so shrub steppe is a combination of shrubs like sagebrush, bitterbrush, and flowering plants, native grasses. Shrub steppe has a layer of cryptobiotic crust, which is a thin layer of lichens, algae, mosses that form a crust over the soil, help retain moisture, help prevent erosion, and also help prevent invasive weeds from infiltrating the landscape. And once we damage the crust or break it, there's an opportunity then for things like cheatgrass, Scotch thistle to get in there and compete with the native plants. This shows you up close in the top corner there, a picture of what cryptobiotic crust looks like up close. You've probably seen it, but maybe you haven't noticed it or been looking for it, but that's what it looks like. And then a scaled back version of that in looking out at the wildflowers. The crust is in between the plants, in the spaces between the shrubs and the perennials. Shrub steppe from a distance, I'm going to go back up to that, this picture. If you look out into the distance, you see something that looks more uniform beyond the tree line there, but shrub steppe is really a diverse ecosystem. There's different soil types, plants that thrive in different parts of it. At both Cowiche Canyon and Snow Mountain Ranch, we have the creek that runs through the property. And so there's a lush riparian area as opposed to up in the higher elevations where there's, much less access to water. So can't support big trees like the cottonwoods, aspens, scary oak trees that the riparian area can support. Shrub steppe is disappearing. There is less than 40% of shrub steppe intact in Washington state from what there was historically. It's threatened by fire, development, roads, and CCC is committed to saving what we can while we can. We look at connectivity. How do we keep the landscape, the intact sections of shrub steppe connected? It doesn't really function well for wildlife if we have, one 5-acre parcel here and one 40-acre parcel there, but they don't connect to each other. So looking at how do we create corridors of connectivity so that wildlife can migrate and adapt as conditions change due to climate change. We believe it's not only important to protect this habitat, but also to find ways for people to experience it. If we just stand back and look at it, we have a different relationship to it than if we actually get out there and learn about it or learn about it off the trail. And the way that we connect people to the landscape is through conservation, recreation, and education and community outreach. The conservation piece, we know that this is important wildlife habitat for a whole variety of species. There are over 20 species of birds that are native to this area, 60 plus species of native butterflies. We recently had a wildlife biologist who's working with us and set up some wildlife cameras out at Snow Mountain Ranch. And this is a photo from just the 17th of November. Magpie and a coyote, which that is a very healthy coyote. I don't think there's a shortage of food for them. But we know there on these wildlife cameras just recently, they've captured deer, coyote, beavers, raccoons. So we know that there's a variety of species that move through this habitat, and it's an important place for them. This fall, we did a project to help protect a species of buckwheat that is endangered. It's called tannum buckwheat. We partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to plant 60 seedlings of this particular buckwheat out at Snow Mountain Ranch in 3 different plots. There is only one known colony of this particular buckwheat that is in Benton County, and it's been impacted by fire and concerns that it's going to disappear if we don't do something to try and establish other colonies. So we are hoping that by putting it in a little higher elevation with a little more moisture, that we'll have some success in establishing some other colonies of it. They believe that the part of why this species is disappearing in Benton County is because lack of rainfall, and we have just a little bit more than they do, which hopefully makes a difference. One of the big milestones for the organization this year was acquiring another 245 acres of shrub steppe in the uplands. This is a project that the organization has been working on for 20+ years to try and get the landowner to sell these 2 parcels to us. It's what's in that red circle there. We closed on it in October. We had just started fundraising for this acquisition in November. We typically, when we run a capital campaign, which this is a $1.2 million capital campaign, we start with a quiet phase where we secure some larger donations. And then once we've got about 60% of the funds raised, we take it public. Just in terms of fundraising, we know that it's much easier for somebody to sign off on a project when it looks like it's going to be successful. So that's why we do that initial quiet phase. And we had secured about 60% by February, went public with the campaign, and right about that same time, COVID hit. And we were very nervous about whether or not we were going to be able to succeed in raising the funds that we needed. And Yakima stepped up in a big way. We raised above and beyond what we needed to for this property and closed on it in October. We had a year to raise the funds and did so we were done by June with the campaign. So I think an important indicator of how much people value these lands in our community and having access to these wild spaces so close to home. One of the challenges that has come with COVID as well is the recreation piece of, we have a 30+ mile trail system, and we have seen a dramatic increase in use of our lands during COVID. Just to give you a kind of perspective, a typical year between April and June at our scenic trailhead, which is the only place we have a trip counter, so we know how many people come through that turnstile there. We typically see 15,000 to 17,000 people during that 3-month time period. This year we saw there were 23,000 trips through that trailhead or through that counter. So that's a big increase from the maximum of 17,000 to 23,000 people. And we see the impacts of that. We have had an increase in garbage at our trailheads, dog waste on the trails, complaints from neighbors, graffiti on the outhouses, on rocks, more user cut trails, all kinds of things that just come with being a public space. But also during this time of COVID, we haven't had the ability to do education in the way that we normally would. So it's harder to get the message out to people about how you use this land responsibly. So as a result of those things that we've seen and the increase in use, we've developed a couple of programs this year to help address those. One is the Clean Trails team, which we have a group of volunteers that adopt a trail basically and go out on a regular basis, make sure that the garbage is cleaned up, alert us if there's any issues that we need to tend to, but basically they take care of maintaining that trail and keeping it clean. This was somebody just said what they picked up in one day there, either at the trailhead or on the trail. The other program that we've developed is a Trail Ambassador program, which is having a friendly face at the trailhead that can give people information about how to recreate responsibly, kind of the do's and don'ts, and offer training for folks so they can have language to communicate with people when they see behaviors that are unwanted, whether that be dogs off leash or specimen collecting, somebody picking up rocks or wildflowers, whatever it might be. So those are two things that we've launched recently to try and mitigate some of the issues that have come with more use of the land. Obviously, COVID, keeping people safe and healthy on the trails. We've done videos about how to pass on the trail safely. We put signage out. And for the most part, in my experience out there, people are pretty thoughtful about stepping aside or turning their back to you if they're not masked when you're passing them. But we've seen, our parking lots have been full. It's often, there's just a lot more use. And so we need people to understand how to be there and share the space and do it responsibly for COVID, and then also just for the health and safety of the land in and of itself. As I said, we've had to figure out how to do education and our community outreach efforts differently. We've really had to pivot in that way. We typically do monthly community walks where our education opportunities for education, those have come to a halt. We've tried to increase the amount of education that we do via social media with short videos or just posts about whether it's plants or birds or anything that might be of interest to folks, sharing that via social media and our e-newsletters. One way that we're doing that, we did our first ever virtual images of the shrub step art exhibit. I know Delma's been part of that exhibit for multiple years, and this year, knowing that we wouldn't be able to have people gather, and Mary Lou, you've been a part of that as well, wouldn't be able to have people gather in the gallery, we took that and just had the exhibit online, and it was as successful as it's been in years past. We didn't know whether we'd get many sales that way, but it was an effective way to do it and allowed the show to go on, if you will, despite COVID. We have an active monarch rearing project working in conjunction with Dr. David James at Washington State University. He's been studying for over 10 years the migration patterns of the monarch. Monarchs are in decline. We were able to do that program again this year. We had about 10 volunteers who raised monarch larvae and tagged the monarchs and then released them. It's always, we cross our fingers and hope that some of those monarchs will be recovered down in California at their overwintering sites. The population was very low this year, so we'll see what kind of information we get this year, what kind of tags we're able to recover. We have a Trail Talks field trip program that we typically do each spring, getting school-age kids out on field trips. That didn't happen in 2020. This fall, we did our first virtual Trail Talks field trip and did education online for the Natchez School District. And that team of folks has agreed to do one a month starting in February. So we will be doing more virtual kinds of field trips to help bring the shrub step to kids since we can't meet them out there on the landscape. What else? We're working on new signage, new maps for our trailheads that incorporate the new property as well as the South Rim Trail, which was a new trail we opened. It's been there for quite some time, but just finally got the okay from the Bureau of Land Management to sign that trail. So that is a new trail on our property and need new maps to reflect the new 240 acre acquisition. So we're working on those, hope to have those up early in 2021. And also more interpretive information, both in English and Spanish, that talks about the importance of stewarding this landscape, staying on trail, not picking the flowers, not letting your dogs go roam all over the landscape, just teaching people how to steward it responsibly and understand the fragility of the cryptobiotic crust and other aspects of the land. Fundraising has been challenging outside of the capital campaign. That was very successful, but we typically hold an annual fundraiser in April, which we had to cancel this year. And so like with all things, getting creative about how we do that, how we fundraise. And again, I feel like Yakima really appreciates and values these lands and recognizes the importance of them. We've gotten lots of new donors this year. So we're fundraising not in our traditional ways, but continue to fundraise and be able to support the programs that we offer and the staff that helps manage and take care of the land. Our real challenge, I think, moving forward is figuring out how do we balance conservation with recreation? How do we protect the land, give people access to it so that they can engage and experience it, but not love the land so much that it's detrimental to the land? And I think that's in the high use areas of the uplands, it's one of the things that we continue to wrestle with as an organization is how do we do that? I know we're not alone in terms of wild spaces across Washington, across the US that particularly since COVID, people are getting outside more if they can't travel or can't go camping or whatever else they might do. They're seeking out local lands more and more. And so it's just a challenge that we're going to have to figure out how do we manage that. In addition to that, looking forward, we've acquired most of the land that's available currently around our existing ownership and looking at where do we go next? Where are there other larger sections of shrub steppe that can connect, that we can protect? We work in partnership with other agencies like Department of Fish and Wildlife, Bureau of Land Management to identify, what's there and what's the best way, who's most well suited to work on those acquisitions. I think that's about what I wanted to share with you today. I'm happy to answer questions. If folks have questions or if there's something you want to know more about, happy to share.
That's great, Celisa. Is the tandem buckwheat, is that the tausha?
No, it's the tausha is a lomatium. And the tandem buckwheat, no, is it's a different species. I wish it'd take me a minute, but I'll see if I can pull up a picture to share with you of it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that one. Oh, right, the tausha, yeah, it's a lomatium, okay.
Any other questions?
I'm glad you talked about the cryptobiotic crust because when I studied range management, they talked a lot, and it's so important. People don't even think about it or know what it is, or it's just so important.
Yes. One of the one thing I didn't talk about, but we were able to we hired a conservation project manager, a part-time person in I'm trying to think of when she started. It's been in this calendar year, and she was instrumental in working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But just taking a look at our lands, one of the things we've discovered is that the creek at Snow Mountain Ranch is incising, so it's cutting deeper, which disconnects it from the floodplain. And so how do we what kind of restoration can we do to help keep that creek healthy? It's, it's not an unhealthy creek, but if it continues to incise, those banks will get steeper. It will be problematic. And so, although these lands are natural, there's also they're surrounded or flanked by agriculture and lands that aren't natural. And so it's great to have somebody on staff that is focused on that and looking at how do we partner and find funds for bigger restoration projects on the land. I didn't find picture, Susie, of the buckwheat easily.
Okay.
So
Well, sometime, yeah.
yeah, I'll send you one.
Thanks. Who's the person that you hired that you were just talking
Oh.
about?
Her name is Megan Whiteside, and she grew up in Yakima and has been living on the west side working for a conservation restoration company and a lot of watershed or wetland restoration work. And she's continuing to work for them, but does projects like she's been doing a project on the Yakima River around cottonwoods with them. And so she's working part-time for them and part-time for us as well.
Good.
Celisa, how do you do the trail ambassadors? Have you been doing it during COVID-19 or, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
do you figure out what the times are when most people are up there, or how do you decide when to, and is it just the upper canyon or is it also below and at Snow Mountain Ranch?
yep, anywhere, all the trailheads. If anybody's interested in getting involved or volunteering, there's information on the website, but we're doing virtual training. So it's a Zoom training basically. And then there's a Google document that people can sign up for times, shifts, and we just ask that people commit to 10 hours in a calendar year of time on the trail.
And so do you try to take the most trafficked, the highest traffic times to do it, or do you just do it? I mean, how do you know when to assign people?
Right. For the most part, people self-identify what times they'll be out there. Like right now at the uplands, I mean, pretty much anytime you're out there, there's traffic coming through that trailhead. But we do know like days of the week when there's higher traffic. And so certainly weekends, Mondays and Fridays tend to be higher, Thursdays tend to be higher traffic days. So encourage people to go during those times, but also if people are willing to be out there and that doesn't fit their schedule, you know, we're happy to have them out there anytime.
Are you still having a competitive art?
Yes, we will do another art exhibit. The plan is to do it again in 2021. Yes.
Good. Great. Is it still going to be at the box?
Yes. Yeah.
I have
How
many
about with the Yakima?
paintings of the canyon.
Say that again, Delma.
I have many paintings of the canyon.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful place.
One a year.
Yeah.
Celisa, most people who know me know I've become a little bit obsessed with geology.
Oh. Mhm.
And so I have one specific question I wouldn't expect you to understand, although I would praise you if you have the answer.
Okay.
Many of the different basalt flows in the Columbia basalt have specific names. And so I want to know the specific name or names besides basalt and andesite of the basalt flows we see in the canyon. And a second question that occurred to me during this talk is, does the Conservancy have connections, formal connections of any sort with people with real scientific expertise on the various scientific dimensions of the canyon? Geology, hydrology, soil science, et cetera. And you know, I don't know where this goes, except, you know, it would be very cool for the Conservancy if there were, whether it was an honor kind of thing or a paid kind of thing, you know, the Conservancy botanist, the Conservancy hydrologist, the Conservancy geologist, maybe or even fundraising around that kind of dimensions of the canyon. Are there any people who are formally connected as scientists on those various dimensions of the canyon?
I wouldn't say formally connected. We certainly, you know, like David James, for instance, as an entomologist, you know, there are people that we certainly have a relationship with and work with regularly, but I hear what you're saying in terms of having these, specialists, and as a small organization, quite frankly, we don't have the capacity in terms of financial resources to employ all of those things. It would be ideal to have them, but
there may be people in the community who would want to connect
yeah,
with a real substantial basis in the sciences that are appropriate.
yeah.
I think that would be really cool.
Haven't you done that to some extent through the lecture series, brought in people that had expertise? It's not the same as what Larry's discussing, but I think that's an intriguing idea, Larry. But or someone like, Nick Zentner's spoken before. He's been a presenter for the Cowiche Canyon Conservancy, as have other people. But in terms of a relationship, ongoing relationship, yeah, I often wish he would once a year be a guide that would walk through the canyon. There'd be a geology walk once a year. I mean, there is a geology walk in terms of fall colors, or other
Are you
events.
ready for thousands of people, Mary Lou?
Yeah, there might have to be thousands of people.
Brings his own traffic jam, I think.
Yeah, that is a traffic jam.
Ed,
Yeah.
Ed
Yeah.
had something.
Well, David Hike, has
Right.
on a number of occasions has lectured on the geology of the canyon. Each I think, what is it, the spring, I think.
Earth Day.
April, Earth Day.
Yeah, Earth Day, and
Yeah.
so has the geologist from Heritage, right?
Well, David was at YVC, so
Right.
but so he knows about, he's a resource for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ed. In fact, one of my first moments on the path towards my geological obsession was seeing Dave on one of the Earth Days years ago, set up just below Bridge 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a great echo, I discovered the other day.
Maybe we need an echo expert.
And I'll be the echo expert. My own thinking is a manifestation of that.
Speaking of the winter lecture series, I don't think I mentioned that, but we'll do a virtual winter lecture series. It's another way we're adapting to current times. And on deck this year is a speaker around the natural history of Mount Rainier. So for you geology folks, that will be a good one. Lichens, mountain lions, and then potentially the Yakima Nation and their work in creek restoration on Cowiche Creek. So those are all lectures to look forward to. And people love geology. You're not the only one, Larry. Lots of geology lovers out there. And if we can get Nick to come back, we will, certainly.
And maybe, and I got to confess, I'm not familiar with the Conservancy's webpage.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just developing areas on the webpage that address some of these different natural dimensions of the canyon and Snow Mountain and the other Cowiche activities and properties.
Yeah, we have a trail guide that there was a docent manual back in the day that was developed, and Cy, our Education and Community Outreach Coordinator, has been working on updating that document, and the plan is to put that on the website to make it available for folks. So there's information on everything from the geology to the Native American history of the land to birds, butterflies, the whole spectrum. So that is something that he's working on. And the last piece is really connecting with folks at the Yakima Nation and making sure that the history that we have in there is accurate, is from their perspective.
Well, my love for the Conservancy and the canyon is just growing and growing. So really admire what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
it's very impressive how your staff has expanded, how you've adapted in all these ways. And it's kind of ironic in a way that your success has made more work and threatened the land a little bit more. I mean, that, you know, when you're up there, you realize how trafficked it's been. And it's partly because it's so dry that you notice it. It's been such a dry time. I think that's been, in some ways, it's made people less aware of staying on trails, it seems to me. You know, I don't, maybe that's just my imagination, but it seems to me that people go farther afield because they're not as aware that they're stepping on things. But on the other hand, it's wonderful that so many people have been out there. It's amazing what you see out there.
Yeah, it's really popular, very, very popular.
Yeah, the most recent complaint I've gotten was around like people going out for family photographs or senior photographs, and like groups of 10 or so people trampling off and taking props or different things, and got a call about it, and somebody said, you know, you got to do something about this. You need to get the word out, like it's not okay. And I think it is just a matter of education, that people are unaware of what kind of impact that has, or that they may be damaging fragile habitat when they do that, and they just are, you know, oblivious. And so hopefully signage will help, but also need in-person people on the ground too, that are helping to deliver that message.
Well, I'm excited to hear about the lecture series. That'll be great. And is that going to be at 7 in the evening still, or?
Yep, it'll be in the evenings. And I'm wondering if we might be able to record it as well, so that
On the site, that would be great. Yeah.
I would, yeah.
Great.
Sorry, I'm late. I missed I missed your talk, Celisa.
Well, it's nice to see your face again.
I was out hiking in the canyon, actually. That's where I
You were walking this morning too, weren't you?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of walking these days.
Yeah, me too.
It's recorded, Ed. You can look later.
Oh, good. I will.
Yeah.
I will.
It
Yeah.
is great. You missed a great presentation. Well, great. Other questions?
Yeah, I just got a text from someone else who forgot to sign on too. So I told her she can later.
I think we have COVID fatigue expressed today with people missing, but that's life. That's our life. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, Celisa, thank you very much. Other questions come up? If not, we'll just thank Celisa for all the information we got. Thank you, Celisa. And I just want to mention that, Ed, am I right that you are doing Coffee House Poets next?
Yes.
Wednesday?
Yes. Thank you for mentioning it. Next Wednesday at 7 o'clock, and I'll send the link to Mary Lou.
Yep.
And she can send it out to the members of the neighbors, and if you're on our email list, you'll get it. And but if anybody who is listening right now would like to tune in on that, well, if you have a connection to Mary Lou, you should get the link. So, but anyway, yeah, next Wednesday, 7 o'clock, and it's an open mic. So if you happen to be moved to write a poem and you want to present it, you're more than welcome to do that, or just come and listen. So,
okay, Larry, we want to hear something on your passion for geology.
yeah, right. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'll take that challenge under advisement.
Okay. And
Larry's a good poet.
yeah, I'm sure he is. And then on December 16th, the Story Share group of our group is going to host a story sharing evening among us, or afternoon. And Ed and Linda Brown are going to host it. It's going to be Let's Talk About the Holidays, and you're going to be getting information telling you how you can participate. So we hope you will. And then January 6th, Dottie Armstrong of the Yakima Coffee House Poets is going to be reading from her recent book of poetry, and several other of her friends who are poets will join her. And on January 20th, Sean Tate, who's presented before for Cowiche Canyon, will be talking to us about the intelligence of trees. So we've got some fun programs coming up, and we really appreciate Celisa tonight.
Yes.
So thank you all, and we'll sign off.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Celisa.
Celisa.
Thank
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 you.
you.
Fantastic. Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Bye.